we talked about factoring cubics. Cubic meaning 3. Cube means 3. So today we are going to, today we are going to talk about factoring quartics. So quartic means an exponent of 4. So first they have us do just a little refresher on factoring something with an exponent of 2, which is something we've been doing pretty much all year. So whenever we factor, we look for a what first? GCF. Does this have a GCF right here? No. Okay, so no GCF. Then I'll look for S and P. What's my S? 7. And what's my P? 12. Okay, so remember, it has to multiply to give me 12 and add to give me 7. If there was a number out here in front, ours doesn't have one, it's just an understood 1. That's when we check inside, outside, right? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and make my 2 parentheses. What multiplies to give us 12 and adds to give us 7? 3 and 4. 3 times 4 is 12, 3 plus 4 is 7, so those must be my factors. It just has to give me 1x squared, so remember we put x and x, and then we plug in our 3 and our 4. If you're ever unsure of your signs, you can check inside, outside here too. Inside would give me what? 3x, outside would give me, and I need them to add to give me a positive 7, so they must both be right. Okay, so we've been doing those for a while now. Now let's look at this one. It has the same numbers, the only thing that changed is the exponents, right? So we should be able to work it out the same way. So this time, I don't just need to get 1x squared, I need to get x to the 4th. So what would multiply to give us x to the 4th? If x times x is x squared, what could we multiply to give us x to the 4th? Yes, we're going to times the x squared. It's good. X squared and x squared will multiply to give us x to the 4th. So that's the only thing that we're going to change. I still need it to add to give me my sum, 7, and multiply to give me my product, P. Well, what multiplies to give us 12, adds to give us 7? 3 and 4 still. I put in my 3, and I put in my 4. If I check inside, what would inside give me? 3x squared, and what would outside give me? And is 3x squared plus 4x squared going to give us 7x squared? Yeah. So these actually work the exact same way as our old factoring did, but instead of just putting an x and an x right here, we're going to have to put an x squared, because it has to get us just one step further. All right? Okay, so let's look at a few more examples. All right, example 1 here. What do I look for first? Does this have 1? Okay, so now I look for my S and P. What's S? -5, And what's my P? Nice. Okay, so I'm asking you guys what multiplies to give us 14 and will add to give us 5? Seven and 2, right? And Seth said that the 7 is the one that needs to be negative. So let's check that. What's -7 plus 2? Which is exactly what we need up here, right? Okay, so I know what I'm going to put in my parentheses, but instead of just x, I have to put x what? Squared. Good. So x squared minus 7 and x squared plus 2. All right. Number 2. Does this one have a GCF? No. Okay. All right. So what's S? Good. And what's P? Good. So what do we think of that multiplies to give us 16 and adds to give us 10? It is going to be 8 and 2. -8 What else do we think? You think it's a positive 2? So negative 8 times, right, that would have given us a negative when we multiply it, right? So that wouldn't have worked. So they have to both be negatives to multiply to give us a positive, and then negative 8 minus 2 would give us that negative 10. All right, so I make my parentheses, but instead of x, I have to put x squared, good. So I'll have x squared minus 8 and x squared minus 2. All right. Number 3. Does this one have a GCF? No? Okay. All right, so now I look for S and I look for P. S has to be in the middle. Do we have an S? No, so what must it be? 0. And what's my P? Negative 16. All right, so what multiplies to give us negative 16 and adds to give us 0? Negative 4 and positive 4. Very good. All right, so I am going to make my 2 sets of parentheses. So I'm going to have x squared plus 4 and x squared minus 4, right? Okay, now this hasn't happened yet, but on this one, we do have one that's actually going to be able to factor one step further. So here, neither one of these have an S, right? 0 in the middle of both sets. Here, P is 4. Here, P is negative 4. So is there anything that will multiply to give you negative 4 and add to give you 0? Negative 2 and positive 2. Is there anything that will multiply to give me a positive 4 and add to give me 0? So 2 times 2 is 4, but is 2 plus 2 0? No. So, because this one has a plus sign in there, it does not factor any further. So it's just going to say x squared plus 4. But this one, we should be able to factor further. So I make my 2 sets of parentheses. This time, I just need it to multiply to give me x squared. So it's just going to be x and x. And we said what multiplies to give us negative 4 adds to give us 0? 2 and negative 2. So I'll have a positive 2 and a negative 2. Okay. All right, for number 4, does this one have a GCF? No. Okay, so what's S? Negative 8, and what's P? Positive 7. All right, so what multiplies to give us 7 and adds to give us negative 8?
7 and 1.
7 and 1.
Negative 7.
Negative 7 and negative 1, right? A negative times a negative gives us a positive. We add, we get negative 8. All right. So I make my 2 parentheses. Since it's an x to the 4th, I have to put x squared and x squared, right? Then we got a minus 7 and a minus 1. So again, these don't have anything in the middle, right? No sum. Is there anything that will add to give me 0 and multiply to give me negative 7? No, right? Only 7 times 1 gives me 7, and that won't add to give me 0. Okay, so I can't simplify that one. What about over here? Is there anything that will multiply to give us negative 1 and add to give us 0? 1 and negative 1. Okay, so I can factor this one step further. So I make my 2 parentheses. Since it's an x squared, I'm just going to put x and x. And you guys said it was what numbers?
1 and negative 1.
Good. And then we said we weren't going to change that first one, so just bring that first one down exactly as it was. Okay. All right, number 5. Any GCF? No. Okay, so what's S?
8.
Good. And what's P? Good. All right, so I'm going to make my 2 sets of parentheses here. What do we know will multiply to give us negative 20 and add to give us 8? 10 and 2, okay? And it multiplied to give us a negative, so one of those has to be negative. The 2. All right, so it's an x to the 4th. So I'm going to have x squared. Good. X squared plus 10. Very good. All right, so remember what I said earlier. If it's a plus sign in there, it doesn't work, right? Okay, so we only need to check the ones with a subtraction sign. Is there anything that multiplies to give you 2 that's negative and adds to give you 0? No. So if we can't factor any further, we're done. All right. Number 6, any GCF? No. Okay, so no GCF. What's S? Good. And P?
12.
Very good. So what numbers are we thinking? 4 and 3? What do we think about their signs? Both negatives. Good. All right. So I'm going to make my 2 sets of parentheses. Since it's x to the 4th, I need x squared for both. So I'll have x squared minus 3 and x squared minus 4. All right, so they're both negative, so we do need to check them. Anything multiply to give you negative 3 and add to give you 0? No. All right, so I just bring that one down as it is. All right, what about for this one? Anything multiply to give you negative 4, add to give you 0? Negative 2 and 2. So this one I can't factor. This time, since it's just an x squared, I just put x and x. Good. And you guys said we'll use 2 and negative 2, right? All right, number 7. On number 7, do we have a GCF? No. Okay, so what's S? Good. And what's P? Good. So what numbers do we think this time? 1 and 4. Good. Right, they do both have to be negatives. All right, so since it's x to the 4th, we're going to do and x squared. There we go. All right, so they are both minus, so we've got to check. Anything multiply to give us negative 4, add to give us 0? Right, so this one I can factor. So I'll have, since it's x squared, x and x. And what numbers? Nice. Okay, here. Anything multiply to give you negative 1, add to give you 0. Negative 1 and positive 1. Good. So I can factor this one again as well. Again, since it's just an x squared, we put good. And you guys said we're going to have nice. And now we're done. Oh, there it goes. Okay. Number 8. Does number 8 have a GCF? No. Okay. So what's S? 0, right? There's not one. And what's P? Good. Okay, anything multiply to give us negative 1, add to give us 0? Negative 1 and positive 1. All right, and since that's an x to the 4th, we're going to have x squared. So we got x squared plus 1, x squared minus 1, right? Okay, so this one is a plus, so we know it doesn't simplify. What about this one? 1 and positive 1. So bring this one down just how it is. We're not going to change it. But this one will. So since it's x squared, we do x and x. Nice. All right. Last one. Does number 9 have a GCF? 2. Okay, so we need to pull out a 2. If I divide 4x to the 4th by 2, what's left? 2x to the 4th. Alright, and when we divide negative 6x squared by 2, we get, good. And if I divide 2 by 2, we get 1. Alright. Okay. So now that we fixed it, what is S and P?
3, negative 3.
Good. So S is negative 3, P is positive 1. Alright, but this time, in front of the x to the 4th, is it just a secret 1? No. So, remember we bring down our GCF. I make my 2 parentheses, but instead of just putting x and x, it has to be something that multiplies to give us 2x to the 4th. So what multiplies to give us 2? 2, right. So we could do a 2x to the 4th, x to the 2nd, and a 2x to the 2nd, right? Sorry, not 2 and 2, 2 and 1. So 2 times 1 is 2. Okay. Now remember, it does have to multiply to give me P. What multiplies to give us 1? 1 and 1. Right, that's the only thing, right? But since we have a number right here, we have to check inside and outside to see if it gives us the 3. So I'm going to plug in my 1s. Alright, when I check inside, what do I get? Good. And what about outside? And can I make 1x squared and 2x squared give us negative 3? Yeah, if they're both what? Negatives. Alright, so I need a negative here and a negative here. Alright, so over here, I do have a minus in there, but remember, there's a number here, right? So if I try and factor it further, it has to multiply to give me negative 1 and add to give me 0. Remember, when you check inside and outside, you're going to have to multiply one of those 1s by 2, right? So is there any way that 2 and 1 can add to give you 0? No. So this one won't factor any further. This one does not have that 2 in front. So is there a way we can get a 1 and a 1 to give us 0? Yeah, what would that be? Negative 1 and positive 1. Good. All right, so we bring down our GCF. We bring this one down because we said we're not going to change it. But this one we said we can factor. So I make my 2 sets of parentheses. Okay, so this time it's just x squared, so I'll put x and x, right? And we said what numbers we were going to use? Good. Alright, so don't forget, if there is a number right here in front of your x squared or your x to the 4th that you can't get rid of by taking out a GCF, that we check inside and outside to see if it adds to give us our sum. Alright?